Following up a wounded leopard is dangerous. Following up a wounded lion is deadly. Laws vary in different African areas and countries. In some areas it's completely illegal to shoot from a vehicle, but if the terrain and vegetation allows and if it's legal, I strongly recommend that a vehicle be brought in for a follow-up on the cats. It's not cowardly, it makes sense because, you know what, it doesn't really reduce the danger. The animal, either cat can be on top of the vehicle in a flash, but it gives you some visibility, and while it's preferable to not get anybody hurt during a follow-up, the real goal is to prevent the escape of a wounded animal. So, if possible, allow the PH to bring in a vehicle for that follow-up. Of course, in many cases, the terrain and the vegetation simply won't allow that, and so you have to take the blood spoor and you're going to take it one slow step at a time, wherever it leads. A large percentage of leopards and some number of lions are taken at last light, and this means that by the time the PH can assess the situation and get a proper team assembled, it's going to be dark. It's extremely dangerous to follow up a wounded cat in the dark. Now, in areas where there are hyenas, some attempt is probably going to be made simply because if you don't recover the cat relatively quickly, then it's very likely that it's going to be eaten, and that's, of course, a terrible waste and a terrible shame. So in hyena areas, a PH will normally make at least a limited attempt. Obviously, at some point, you have to conclude that you have the worst. But even in the dark, most professional hunters will take a track 50 yards, 75 yards, maybe as much as 150 yards. But by that time, you have to conclude that you have a wounded cat. And so you're probably going to wait until the next day and assemble a proper team. Obviously, much depends on what the professional hunter observed when the shot was fired and what he heard just after the shot was fired. You may know from the very beginning that this cat's not hit properly and it's going to be a long night and maybe a longer day. If there are other professional hunters in the area, then he's often going to get on the radio and see if he can get another PH or two to come in and assist. And of course, he's going to assemble his trackers and they're going to talk it over and look at the spoor and decide what's to be done, whether should take it for a while or wait until the following morning. Depending on the professional hunter's opinion of his client's coolness and experience and safe gun handling, you as the hunter may be invited to go along on the follow-up, or the PH may prefer that you remain behind. Either way, this has to be altogether the professional hunter's call. He's the one who has the license. He's responsible for the safety of the party. So whatever his decision is, you need to go with it. But if you're invited along, you may not love it. As with all wounded animals, the cat's going to be followed until he's either found or he finds you, or the blood trail diminishes and is lost. And it could be any one of these events. Because of the cat's camouflage and smaller size relative to, say, a buffalo or an elephant, a follow-up on a cat is much more likely to result in a charge. And especially with leopards, it can turn into a wild melee. The lion will usually pick one person and make the charge and continue through until he's stopped. But the leopard, who's probably going to come from closer range and has speed on his size, the leopard is likely to jump from one person to another. The maximum that I've heard of is 6 people mauled in one follow-up, but it happens. 2 or 3 is very common, and more than that happens now and again. So you have to understand that now you have an enraged cat hissing and spitting and clawing and snarling and jumping from one person to another, sort of like a runaway chainsaw. The most dangerous thing out there is still the rifle. If you're asked to go on the follow-up, this is serious business. Take your assigned place, keep up, keep your rifle on safe, under control of both hands, muzzle in a safe direction, and try to be aware of where every member of the party is at every time. A cat charge can come from very close quarters, and it can come from any angle at any time. Unfortunately, there have been a lot of accidental shootings during follow-ups with both lions and leopards. If a cat has someone down, probably the only safe angle to finish it is to get very, very low and parallel and make absolutely certain that all members of the party are clear. Hey, this takes some real cool thinking, and things are happening awfully fast and a little bit messy. In darkness, there's some advantage that the cat's eyes will shine in the light and offer a shot before a charge is launched. So there's a slight advantage, but obviously it's terribly dangerous in the dark. Again, most professional hunters will take a track for 50, 75, maybe 150 yards in the dark, and then most will agree that it's time to call it off until the morning, and then the follow-up will start in earnest.